gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Political Smackdown. I'm Les Westmoreland. We're glad to have you with us, and we've got our regular crowd with us today. Good to have everybody together again. And by the way, if you're watching us on Spectrum Channel 19, you can also see us on c19.tv. So please share that with your friends. We're glad to have you with us. Last week, Mike brought up a significant vote by the Board of Commissioners regarding the Justice Center. Mike, refresh us on what the commissioners did, and then let's talk about the Justice Center and where it stands and what's going on with it.
Well, I did not have a whole lot of information. I had just watched some of their meeting from the prior Tuesday when we met last week, and I just noted that with many of the contract agreements they had having expiration dates that were coming up in the next few weeks, and because the commissioners have got a tremendous amount of cash, courtesy, Andy, of the gentleman who beat you 20 years ago, about $100 and some million, they went ahead and did contracts a little early because prices were going to go up. Price of steel, concrete, and a lot of other building supplies has gone up. So they, I thought, made a pretty wise decision because they've got the cash on hand. Now, they'll eventually have to borrow, Wes, a fair amount of money, and we can talk about that after we talk about what's going on. But I just thought that was worth noting last week, and so Wes has gotten more information, so dig in, Wes.
Well, I'll pass this along to Betsy. Bidenomics and all the inflation of it sort of forced the commissioners to move forward.
Oh,
Wes.
We can't, let's talk about Bidenomics. No, let's talk more about what's going on with the Justice Center.
That was just a jab.
Yes. Anyway, okay.
So, tell
All
me,
right.
what do you think?
I just think that when you look at the building is going to be like 5 stories, is that right?
Yes.
And they're going to be able to house all the departments that have been sort of scattered out throughout the complex and the area there on Marion Street. They're going to have the DA's office there, and as well as the detention, sheriff, courthouse. You know, I think it's going to be a big plus for Cleveland County. And going across the state and visiting other counties that have these new courthouses, it really does add such pride to the county. And it just makes it look like the county is really offering a good economic. Unless you make hay while the sun shines, and while Tim Moore is Speaker of the House, and we know when he leaves us and moves on to greener pastures, someone else will take that spot, and we won't have all this port money. And so let's use it for the benefit of our citizens of Cleveland County.
Andy, you and I were little children when the current courthouse was built. This is not a 10-year building like we see so many of going up today. This is a 50, 75-year headquarters for justice in Cleveland County. Granted, it's very expensive, but we're talking about 135,000 square feet for the courthouse, nearly 45,000 for the sheriff's office, 111,000 for detention. Register of Deeds going to be there, public defender, the district attorney is going to be there, all headquartered on this single campus. So it is a huge expenditure, but it's a pretty significant center for the county. What are your thoughts here?
Well, and I think it is. And Wes, I mean, people, I guess we're showing our age now, but when that was originally built, it was built with funds to make that a fallout shelter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was originally built with. And if anybody has spent any time in that building, especially down in the basement of it, I mean, that's going to be a heck of an undertaking to demolish that place. I mean, it was built to keep out radiation and all the fallout and everything else that goes with it. So that's going to be something to watch, take that down. So, I mean, there's always been some type of funding to come out that was beyond just local money. So if somebody wants to poo-poo about the state funds or any federal funds to draw down into this, they don't know what they're really talking about, because there's always been other funds into this, because counties cannot build these things alone. And it is my sincere hope that this will serve this county way past our lifetimes. I mean, we try to do this, and it seems like we always seem to outstrip it a lot sooner than we think we will. And I like to think that our commissioners are trying to see past the timeline we have in the past. Chairman Kevin Gordon called me last week when I was doing questions and wanted to know if I was going to, and I said, Kevin, I just don't think we've really got enough information yet, because they had just talked about it the night before. And I said, we've always tried on our show to try to wait until we've got all our information to make sure we put accurate information out. And he appreciated that, and that's why we had the decision just to wait till this week so we could get it all fleshed out and make sure we had the right information to come out. And I really think they did the right thing, Wes. I mean, and this has nothing to do with party labels. This is about being good stewards of the public purse and doing the right thing. And, some people are going to say, oh, this is a lot of money. Yes, it is a lot of money. But if we're going to do things like this, you've got to do it in the most judicious manner. What is the best way to leverage public money to get the biggest bang for the buck, to get where you need to go for public use, the best way you can to get the best project done for the least amount of money? Don't do it just the cheapest way, because that's not going to work. I mean, it never does.
Right.
Just get it done quality work for the best price you can to get the best longevity you can get and the most utility you can get. I'm not an engineer by no means. I like to think from what I've seen, that's what they've done, just from my casual observation. And I think that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I did not realize that it was built to be a fallout shelter, Andy.
Yep, originally it was.
And you're right. When it came down, what did they have to do to remove all those extra walls and so forth and that strength? So, and I think what you said about how we need the longevity, we won't be seeing another courthouse built. And we want to make sure, and I think the commissioners are looking ahead
Betsy,
like
I
they
just
should.
hope we live to see this one built.
Well, a lot of people didn't think we'd see the bypass build either,
That's
Mike, but
true.
we're just about on the last
Yes.
leg of that. So.
Well, we're looking at the fall of '26 as the projected completion date on this.
Now, that's fast.
That is fast.
So let's just say that happens. That's 2.5 years. So then, they're going to build the new complex behind or to the east and out where the Star Building was. The county has bought Love and Kendrick's old service station. You see all the sheriff's cars sitting there now. I think they bought the old dry cleaners. They bought several properties. The DA's office is currently, Andy, in what we used to know as Dixon Auto Supply years ago. And it'll be in the building. But only when this building is complete, then the current building will be demolished, and that'll essentially become parking for the new courthouse. So there'll be another year or so there probably. I don't know how long it'll take to do all of that, but there'll be another year or so before you really, after completion, before you get a parking lot. I don't know how long that'll take built, but that's a part of their projections as well. And so they have, I will say this, Andy, in order to make this happen, they had to buy those properties up and down Marion Street. And they've had to buy the Star Building and have it demolished already a couple years ago now, a year and a half ago, and dig that big hole, ran into a few issues there, have those resolved, I think. But it is a massive undertaking for a county of 100,000 people. Could not have been done. There's no way this could have been done without that $100+ million from the state grants.
How true.
Well, I have one pressing question for Mike West. Where is the sheriff going to put his tanks at? I don't see anywhere where there's coverage for that. Is there going to be a shed somewhere for that?
You're going to get in trouble one day for that.
Well,
I
Mike's
think-
going to be in trouble with me. though.
Is he not having a helicopter pad built on top of the building?
Well, that I don't know. You tell me. I don't know.
5 stories tall.
Yes, could be.
This will be a 5-story building, over 300,000 square feet. It's obviously more than we need today, but it's built to take us well into the future, and I think that's great foresight.
Well, let's at least talk a little bit about the challenges the commissioners still face. Prices do keep changing on the other things, and we don't think we'll get a whole lot more money from the state grant this year, which could be the last one as the speaker won't be there. I will have others that maybe can get some grants if they're still needed, but a good, figure it out, $40, $50 million, plus or minus a few million here and there. It's going to have to be paid for with local money, and there will eventually be some borrowing for that. So the real question is, how does it impact, if at all, property taxes in Cleveland County? That isn't a question that I don't think there's a known answer for yet. Commissioners can correct me if I'm wrong.
And I dread to think what the answer will be when it comes to that,
I
Mike.
think most of the property tax burden probably on Dixon School
I
Road,
think so
don't you?
too. I may have to sell my property
Where
to
most,
pay my
they ought to pay their
taxes.
fair share down on
I
Dixon
think
School
I'm
Road.
paying my fair share.
And Wes, and I don't mean to throw any aspersions to our current delegation in Raleigh, but let's face it, they're not going to have the heft that we have right now with the Speaker of the House with Tim there. I mean, they just don't. I mean, and I'm sure they're going to do all they can. We're going to have a new freshman member. It's going to take Tim's spot. He's going to be on the back row.
Back row.
And he's going to say, "Thank you, sir. Glad to be here. Where's the restroom?" That's going to basically go be
Well, Andy,
his
don't you
first term.
remember a couple years ago when one of these big grants, like 45 million or whatever, some big number, were coming for the first kind of down payment on this from the speaker? In one of the committee meetings, one of the people asked, "Is the courthouse falling down? Why is there so much money going to Cleveland County for a new courthouse justice center?" And the answer they got was, "It's in the speaker's district."
And that is the way
That's
the
it.
game is
That's what
played.
you're alluding to.
Yes.
Yes, and that's the way the game is played. And it's also done as if that's where the chairman of appropriations is, and they get what they want. And that's just, it's hardball, but that's the facts of how it's played.
Yeah, we can't deny the positive impact that Speaker Moore has had in Cleveland County, not just here with the Justice Center, but other places. But at the same time, to your point, Mike, I do think the commissioners, this is not something that just came up overnight. This has been planned, it's been worked on. I think they've got a plan in place that will make this reasonable for the taxpayers.
Here's one other significant thing that happened last year in early 2023. Brian Epley, who was the person behind getting all this ball rolling as the county manager, gave a 60-day notice and went to Burke County. And so then last summer, we have a new county manager who's had to have some time to kind of get his hands and arms around this with the commissioners.
And that's a heck of a thing to get on the fly, so to speak.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a major project with new manager involved, but appears to be moving forward quickly, and I think it's going to be a very positive thing for the county. I hate we have to spend this much money to deal with criminals, because that's what it's about, Mike. But that's just the reality of the world we face. But I'm glad our commissioners are forward-thinking and planning for, again, not a 10-year project, but a 50, 75-year project that will outlive us all. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk about a couple more projects going on in Cleveland County.
Chef Paul Prudhomme once said, "You don't need a silver fork to eat good food. Well, on Cleveland County Kitchen, we don't have a silver fork, but we sure do serve up lots of good food. Hi, I'm Deborah Blanton. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen. Each month, we offer a complete farm-to-table experience. We visit local growers, we learn about nutrition, and wrap things up with wonderful meals prepared by our guest chefs. It's a lot of fun. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen.
There are a lot of times I really wish the camera ran during the break because there's a lot of interesting discussion that goes on after we go to commercial. Well, while we're on the subject of construction in Cleveland County, we now have only mentioned in passing the new auditoriums. Both are complete after decades of discussion. Betsy, you were involved with the drama program at Kings Mountain for years in a reasonable auditorium. What's this going to mean for Crest and Burns, but not only the schools, but the entire community?
Oh, and to see these new auditoriums, it will have such an impact, all positive. And I've said before, I never have, the drama teachers at these two high schools, all these years, my hat goes off to, because they had such facilities, they only had like amphitheaters, or they had to find other places to have their plays. And now it's a state of the art. And look at it, you've got like gliding rigs that come down to the floor so that you can adjust lights and then move it up. You don't have those A-frame ladders that you climb up feet above the floor to adjust lights. But it is a beautiful facility in both places. And when I came into the county, Crest and Burns were both high schools, and the talk then was about we need auditoriums. And then Kings Mountain, had the fundraiser, and in our and our auditorium cost half what Malcolm Brown did, but we had one, even though the stage door opened outside. It's like they ran out of money when they got to the stage, but at least I had a place to perform, for my students to perform. And the pride that you have when you have a facility like that at your home high school is immense. Oh, I just hope everybody will go see some of the plays up there at both auditoriums so they can see what it's like. And you can have, you'll be able to have all these dance programs, and you can rent it out. And it's such a learning aspect as far as theater students and what they learn technically as well as acting. And I think you'll see a boom in the theater department big time. And I'm just so happy that they're here, and they're beautiful, and just look forward to going to my first plays up there.
Andy, I've been to performances and support the theater program at Shelby, which obviously has grown because of the auditorium in a big way, and have been to others. And it's such a striking difference than to go to Charlotte, pay $100 a seat and $50 to park and all that. But there's a whole lot more there than just the theater. This is a community center. These auditoriums will seat over 1,000 people. That brings a completely new opportunity for both the Bowling Springs area and the Lawndale area.
Well, that's true. I mean, I've been to Blumenthal, and to see some of those Broadway plays come there are really something. I mean, I've been to a couple Broadway plays, actually on Broadway, and to see that there is really something to see. but to bring something that may not be exactly, but close. I mean, when Victoria was at Crest and she was involved in some of this, they had to go over to Gardner Webb
Right.
for some of that, because what we had when I was there called a little theater, and it was little.
An amphitheater,
I mean,
yes.
it really wasn't anything that you could use realistically. And I don't know what they were thinking when they built Crest and Burns. I mean, I guess they just didn't think there'd be any kind of drama or anything. But it was, now we have something to be proud of. I've not yet been to see them yet, and I look forward to, I wish I had went that night to see it, but I think it'll be something great
I
to
do
see. And I thought back to all school board members that have wanted this, both present and past, and I want to go back and thank all of them that worked on this, because it's a great thing for our community.
Yeah, it's been decades coming, Mike, and they've done this the right way. These are state-of-the-art, roughly $15 million apiece, but really going to have an impact in the communities where they're located, and for the county, I think. What are your thoughts?
We didn't have an auditorium at Shelby High School when I graduated, Betsy, back in the dark ages of 1970. But because, we had 3 school systems, the school tax in Shelby built Malcolm Brown a few years after I left. And you never could get the county schools for a long time to even pass a school tax. If you remember, it took about 3 or 4 tries. And that still wouldn't, in today's market, their 14 or 15 cent school tax would not have paid for an auditorium in this day and time. So how did they get it done? I think the bigger miracle is they started out on a 75-25 grant, and that was going to wind up costing too much money as the price went up. Then the state, they got a grant they could apply for that was 95-5, meaning that county schools only had to pay 5% with local money. The other 95% came from OPM, other people's money outside of Cleveland County, but in North Carolina. So it's another windfall for them in that way. Otherwise, it still couldn't have been done. So it finally did get done. You thank the current board, but like you said, a lot of people have tried to have that vision for a long time, and the money wasn't there. And the county wasn't going to be able to do it either, apparently. So kudos to the school board for getting it done, for getting the 95-5 match, and I do hope they get a lot of use. But Andy, I'm going to have something just a little bit out of the way about it. The question really is, will farmers have plays? Historically, the more rural areas didn't have time for that because they went home and helped, a lot of them. Now, it's a different world now, I know that. But back in the day, that was true.
That's true. I grew up in a rural
Have you not ever heard of Oklahoma?
Well, we're certainly glad to see these done. This is going to be a positive thing for Cleveland County, and Andy, you're right, it's been a long time coming. A lot of school board members working on it, but kudos to this board for getting it done. Well, the first of this month, a new minimum wage went into effect in California for fast food workers, $20 an hour. Mike, what effect is this having, and is it good for workers? How about consumers? And is it the proper role of government to tell me what I can sell my time for?
Well, whether it's the proper role or not, we've had a minimum wage, I guess, since FDR. That's when it started. I went to work for minimum wage in 1968 or 9 when I went to work at Baxter Corporation, Andy. They paid me $1.60 an hour.
Everybody knows what you're worth, Mike.
I was going to say, you're worth every penny of that.
It may be that manager said, Mike, we'd like to pay you as a kid what you're worth, but there's a minimum wage law. But as a general rule, the only way practically, philosophically, I can certainly make the case that the market should determine wages. And people will have to pay what somebody's willing to work for to get it. But the reason it's kind of worked well in the last decade or two is it's been kept artificially low. and very few people other than artificially low compared to what the general market is. But now what California and other states are doing by going to 12, 15, and in California's case 20, there's probably not much way that you can, I mean, if you think $10 for a number one at Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or Burger King is bad, what if we had a $20 an hour minimum wage for those high school kids working in there? And so what happens is you price yourself out of the market because you have to raise your prices to pay for it. And even in California, they've already got people closing, people doing less employees, and it's a problem. So you just can't, when you get it artificially higher for the average person than what the market is, instead of just protecting to make sure you get something for the kids starting, you're going to have problems. And I think this will really not be something that spreads to most states because it's artificially high.
Well, Betsy, we're getting short on time. Don't want to slow you down, but the fact of the matter is delivery drivers are the first ones hurt. And then they're the high school kids that are getting the work experience. What are your thoughts on a $20 minimum wage in California?
I have been in favor of raising the minimum wage for years. July 24th, 2009 was when the $7.25 was adopted by Congress to be the minimum wage.
Now that's federal.
I mean federal, federal law. There's 30 states that have minimum wage laws higher than $7.25. North Carolina is one of the 20 that doesn't. And when you make $7.25 an hour and you work 40 hours a week, and by the end of the year you'll make $13,920 a year, and that's below the poverty level in North Carolina. And so I just think, and you know, look what it did in California. You put more money into people's hands. These people will spend it in the economy. Now, I know the Republicans always say that, you know, it's going to put people out of work, businesses are going to close, but thanks goodness to Joe Biden's help with small businesses, and maybe they'll stay in business. So I'm very much in favor of raising it. Now, we don't have the economics that California does here in North Carolina, so I don't see us going to $20 an hour anytime soon, but it'd be great to raise it more, and I don't see it as being a bad thing. And yes, I had more to say, but I will certainly limit it since we are on a limited amount of time.
Betsy. Andy, what are your thoughts?
I'll pass because I think we need to get to our lightning round.
All right, well, I'll let you start with that then.
Well, I read an interesting article on Axios, A-X-I-O-S. It's a thing I read every day. It's an internet website that comes on, and and they had an interesting premise. They said, what if things are really not what we see, that we see sent to us? And I thought it was really interesting. What if they said there's not these deep divisions? What if most Christians aren't white Christian nationalists who see Donald Trump as a godlike figure? Most are ignoring politics and wrestling with their faith. What if most college professors aren't trying to silence conservatives or turn kids liberal activists? Most are teaching math, physics, or biology. What if most Republicans don't want to ban all abortions and starting at conceptions? And most Democrats don't want to allow them until birth. Most immigrants aren't here illegally. That are here illegally aren't rushing to vote and commit crimes. Actually, most data show both really happen, even amid a genuine crisis at the border. So basically what they're saying is, don't listen to everything that you hear because it's probably not accurate. So listen, find the facts. Don't listen to Fox and MSNBC. Find your own information.
Betsy,
From
quickly.
credible sources. One thing that Tim Moore wants to do is put $300 million more into the voucher program. I wish he would put it in when the short session comes in. They'll increase pay for teachers.
Well, we're out of time today. I appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week on another edition of Political Smackdown.